Vrindavan is situated in the state of Uttar Pradesh, district Mathura. It shares borders on the northwest with the state of Haryana and on the west the state of Rajasthan. Nowadays people call Vrindavan the village 15 kilometers northeast of the very ancient city of Mathura, the capital of district. But 5,000 years ago, Vrindavan referred to the extensive forests that covered Mathura district and also known as Mathura Mandala or Vrajabhumi, the land of Krishna. Vrindavan was made famous all over the world by His Divine Grace Abhay-Charan Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder of the Hare Krishna movement. He describes Vrindavan as follows. Vrindavan is such a nice place. Flowers are always blooming. And there are even various kinds of decorated deer. Birds are chirping, peacocks are crowing and dancing, and bees, cuckoos there sing nicely in 5 kinds of tunes. Scriptures we read, there is no other place in this world like Mathura. It can fulfill all the desires of all living beings. As heaps of grass are burnt by fire, so all the greatest sins of men can be destroyed by seeing all the places of Mathura. Oh my dear friend, just live in Mathurapuri, where Govinda, the creator of the 3 worlds, and his gopis reside eternally. O lovers of worldly affairs, do take a lesson. If you want to get eternal happiness, simply live in Mathura. How wonderful it is that simply by residing in Mathura Mandala, even for one day, one can achieve a transcendental loving attitude towards the Supreme Lord. This land of Mathura must be more glorious than the kingdom of God. Actually, Vana means forest and Vrinda refers to the sacred Tulsi tree. So Vrindavan is the forest where Tulsi grows in abundance. Tulsi Devi gives unlimited bliss to the devotees of Lord Krishna who worship Tulsi every day. Another meaning of Vrindavan is the forest of Vrinda Devi. Vrinda is the goddess of the forests of Vrindavan. Along with her friends, the Vana Devis, she maintains all the forests and gardens as her service to the Lord. She eternally resides in Vrindavan, just to the west of the village of Nandagram. From here she organizes all of Krishna's divine pastimes. In fact, it is Vrinda who expands as the worshipable Tulsi tree, for which Vrindavan is so famous. When devotees offer food to Lord Krishna, they always place Tulsi buds with 2 leaves on either side on each preparation. Within this area, Sri Krishna and Srimati Radharani perform their pastimes as the transcendental couple who embody the perfection of divine union and the personal conception of the absolute truth. This place is so sacred and consists of 12 holy forests. Vrindavan from Nandagram to Vrindavan village, the preferred place for the divine couple's pastime. Madhuvan, which satisfies everyone's desires. Talavan, where Krishna killed the Tala fruit demon. If anyone visits Kumudvan, he will become worshipable in Krishna's abode. Bahulavan is where one obtains pious results. Kamyavan is the best of all. Khadiravan, where one can achieve all perfection. At Bhadravan, one becomes fixed in Krishna's consciousness. Bhandiravan is the place where Krishna most played with his friends. In Bilvavan, Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune, performed her austerities. Lohavan can clean one of his vices. Mahavan, where is Gokul, the very first place of Krishna's life. Although they may appear material, all the villages, forests and cow pastures within Mathura Mandala are perfectly spiritual. When Krishna descends to this universe, this same Vrindavan descends, just as a retinue follows an important person. It is why Vrindavan is not considered to exist in the material world. Devotees therefore take shelter of Vrindavan in India, for it is considered to be a replica of the original Vrindavan in the spiritual world. Krishna says the whole area of Vrindavan forest is like my body, and the backbone of that body is the Yamuna river, who flows with nectar like water. The Yamuna river embraces Vrindavan town. She originally comes down from the spiritual world, and on the earth she comes down in the Himalayas from Kalinda mountain. She has thus become known also as Kalindi. Her waters are so purifying that bathing 100 times in the Ganges is equal to one bath in the Yamuna. A person who bathes in Yamuna becomes pure and self-controlled. By the Yamuna's touch, a sinful person becomes free from sins, pious and saintly. Simply by bathing in Yamuna, the devotees attain the association of Sri Krishna. When Krishna took birth, all the stars and planets automatically came into perfect harmony. He appeared as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. Devaki's brother Kamsa had usurped the throne of Mathura. An oracle warned him that the eighth son of his sister would kill him. Thus, at the time of Krishna's birth, they were in jail, and one after another, Kamsa had killed all her sons. At the same time in Gokul, Mother Yashoda Mai, Nanda Maharaj's wife, gave birth to a baby girl, who was Yogmaya herself, the internal potency of the Lord, who controls the influence of the material energy. With her power, she made everyone at Kamsa's palace enter into a heavy sleep and opened every door and chain. In this way, Vasudeva could take Krishna out from the prison. It was a dark and stormy night, but with Krishna in his arms, he could see as if it was daytime. Krishna is like the sunlight. Wherever he is present, the illusory energy compared to darkness cannot remain. In the form of a big serpent, Lord Anantasesha came and protected them from the rain. Arriving at the Yamuna, the river became shallow and gave Vasudeva passage to cross her waters. Finally, Vasudeva entered Nand Maharaj's residence at Gokul, where everyone was in deep sleep. Carefully he switched the children and went back to Kamsa's palace with the newborn girl. Kamsa was very surprised when he saw this child of Devaki was a girl. He took her in his hands to kill her, but she slipped from his hands and said, "Kamsa, you fool, the child who will kill you is already born before me." So Kamsa decided to kill every boy who was born 10 days before, sending different demons in all directions to achieve it. Mathura is the abode where one's knowledge gradually expands. In Gokul, the sage Garga did Krishna's name, giving ceremony in a cowshed, so that Kamsa would not find out. He said this child will grow in power, beauty, opulence, everything on the level of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The witch Putna was the first demon Krishna killed at only 3 months of age. She appeared disguised as a queen. The people of Gokul thought that she might even be Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. So Mother Yashoda let her offer her milk, not suspecting her breast was poisoned. Krishna accepted it and sucked her poisoned milk together with her life air. Another time, just after his first birthday, Trinavarta came in the form of a whirlwind. He kidnapped Krishna in the middle of a sandstorm, but couldn't carry him too far, as Krishna made himself so heavy that the demon fell down smashed. Still, Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda always thought that Krishna was saved by the mercy of the Lord. They couldn't believe he caused the death of these great demons, and they treated Krishna as their helpless child. Once Mother Yashoda tied Krishna to a wooden grinding mortar as he was doing naughty things. He thought, "First Mother Yashoda went away without giving me enough milk. For that I broke the yogurt pot and gave the stalk of butter to the monkeys. Now she's tied me up to this mortar, so I am going to be even naughtier than before. I am going to break down those 2 Arjuna trees." Those trees were Nalakuvara and Manigriva, once two drunken brothers, sons of Kuvera, the treasurer of the demigods. They were at Shiva's garden, bathing naked and enjoying with young girls. They were so drunken that they would never think of doing something useful for the Lord. The sage Narad Muni happened to pass by and saw them in that condition. He tried to bring back some good sense into their hearts. He told them that intoxication, sex and gambling are the results of material opulence, in the material mode of passion. Forgetting the laws of nature, people believe they are never going to die. They thus pay too much attention to the body and the pleasures they can achieve with it. Although being poor seems to be bad karma, it does help protect one from false prestige, thus making it easier for spiritual advancement. But Nalakuvara and Manigriva would not listen to him. So Narad Muni decided to put a curse on them. He turned them into trees and foretold that they would live for thousands of years, but then the Lord himself would liberate them. Krishna also wanted to protect his devotees' word, so he started to walk towards the trees. Passing between them, he struck the mortar. Being the personality of Godhead, he is the strongest one. He easily forced the trees to fall down at the root. Immediately the two brothers appeared in a brilliant aura. They bowed down to him with prayers and returned to the heavens. Radharani is the most wonderful gopi. She appeared at Raval in the Yamuna river on a golden lotus flower. King Vrishabhanu found her and went running to his wife Kirtika, bewildered by her bright golden complexion. She has a brother, Sridhama, the best friend of Krishna, and a sister, Ananga Manjari, the sweetest girl in the world. When Krishna moved to Nandagram, her family moved to Varshana. Just as Sri Krishna is the possessor of infinite divine energies, displayed in their highest perfection, Sri Radha is the embodiment of these divine energies in their most developed form. Srimati Radharani is the full power and Lord Krishna is the possessor of the power. The two are not different. Out of the 8 main cowherd girls or gopis, Radharani and Chandravali are prominent. And out of these two, Radharani is the most prominent. Srimati Radharani would say, I do not mind my personal distress. I only wish for the happiness of Krishna. His happiness is the goal of my life. However, if he feels great happiness in giving me distress, that distress is the best of my happiness. Radha's great service was her cooking for Krishna. Mother Yashoda asked Radha personally to come to Nandagram and cook for Krishna and the cowherd boys. Nandagram is the place of Nanda Maharaj's palace. Afraid of so many demons, he decided to move to there. When Krishna reached his 6th year, he was allowed to supervise the cows. Now accompanied by numerous cowherd boys and about 900,000 cows, Lord Krishna began to wander to distant parts of Vrindavan. Dressed in a charming variety of garments and flower garlands, they decorate themselves with peacock feathers, lotuses, lilies, newly grown mango sprouts, and clusters of flower buds. Krishna and Balram shine forth magnificently among the assembly of cowherd boys. They look just like the best of dancers appearing on a dramatic stage. Like this, they spend their days dancing, singing, and sporting with each other. Balram is the older brother of Krishna and the son of Vasudeva and Rohini. Since his father was in jail, Nanda Maharaj, as Vasudeva's friend, took Mother Rohini and child in charge. While Sri Krishna always holds the flute, Sri Balram always holds a plough. He is the original spiritual master who plants the seed of bhakti in the devotee's heart. In Ram Leela, Balram serves Lord Ram as his younger brother Lakshman. In this present era Kalyug, he came as Lord Nityanand to spread the Sankirtan movement together with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the sweetest incarnation of Krishna. Here in Rajaleela, together with the other Gopas, he takes care of Krishna and helps him to graze the cows and to kill the demons. In Bhagavad Gita, spoken by Krishna himself, we read, "In order to save the devotees, kill the demons, and to re-establish religion, I myself appear, millennium after millennium." And when he descends to the universe, this same Rajamandala land descends with all the people and into a rage. But only Krishna and Balram remember it. Nanda Maharaj, Mother Yashoda, Mother Rohini, the cowherd boys and girls, everyone forget their original position in the spiritual world and enjoy Krishna as the sweet cowherd boy. O friend, Vrindavan is spreading the glory of the earth, having obtained the treasure of the lotus feet of Krishna, the son of Devaki. The peacocks dance madly when they hear Govinda's flute, and when other creatures see them from the hilltops, they all become stunned, a cowherd girl commented. My dear gopis, Radha would answer, what auspicious activities must the flute have performed to enjoy the nectar of Krishna's lips independently, and leave only a taste for us gopis, for whom that nectar is actually meant. The forefathers of the flute, the bamboo trees, shed tears of pleasure. His mother, the river, on whose bank the bamboo was born, feels jubilation, and therefore her blooming lotus flowers are standing like hairs on her body. When Lord Krishna plays on his flute, another gopi remembers, the sweet music causes the moving living entities to become stunned and the non-moving trees to tremble with ecstasy. Vishakha would say, as it touches his splendid teeth, Krishna's flute looks like a crystal wand. Where it touches Krishna's red lotus palm, it looks like a ruby stick. And where it touches Krishna's blue lotus cheek, it looks like a sapphire. In this way, Krishna's flute looks like these three different jewels. Hearing the fluid sound made the cowherd girls mad with transcendental love, and they ran to meet the flute player Krishna. The natural love of the gopis is devoid of any trace of lust. It is faultless, bright and pure like molten gold. They are the helpers, teachers, friends, wives, confidants and maidservants of Lord Krishna. They know Krishna's desires and they know how to render perfect loving service for Krishna's enjoyment. They do not care for their own pleasures or pains. There are billions of gopis, but 8 are the main servants of Radha. Lalita is the sweetest and best friend of Radharani. She acquired the rare distinction of being expert in dressing Radha. Vishakha has a more tempestuous but diplomatic character and is the most intelligent and expert of all the gopis' messengers. Chitra is a trained gourmet cook and she is an expert in literature, astronomy, astrology and making music playing water pots. Indulekha, also hot-tempered and contrary nature, knows the science of palmistry and charming snakes. Champakala is secretive, expert in the art of logical persuasion, a diplomat skilled in thwarting Radha's rivals like Chandravali. Rangadevi is an ocean of gestures, words and very fond of joking with Sri Radha while standing before Krishna. Tungavidya is another hot-tempered gopi, learned in the 8 branches of Vedic knowledge and a music teacher. Sudevi is the most sweet and charming sister of Rangadevi. She always remains beside Sri Radha, arranging her hair, decorating her eyes and massaging her transcendental body with scented oils. In Krishna's exchanges with the gopis through the Ladini Shakti, internal pleasure potency, there is unlimited and unending ecstasy. This pleasure is far different from the quickly satiated lusts of sexual affairs, which are soon followed by painful entanglements and karmic reactions. The Vrajagopis are glorified throughout the Vedas and by Sri Krishna and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as being the best devotees of Krishna because they offer completely surrendered, selfless service at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. But the humble gopis themselves praise Sri Giriraja as the best devotee of Krishna, serving in many ways. Sri Giri Govardhana is considered as non-different from the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. One day 7-year-old Krishna saw that his father and some other cowherd men were absorbed in preparing a sacrifice to satisfy the king of the demigods, Lord Indra. So he asked very respectfully why they were going to do that. Nanda Maharaj thought that Krishna would not be able to understand the complexity of the act. He tried to explain him that it was a traditional ceremony the country people used to do to please Indra in order to get plenty of rain for the fields. Krishna then began to argue. Why do you need to worship the demigods just to have some material gain? That is temporary. That you can also obtain with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as it is He who gives that power to the demigods. And with Him you can gain spiritual and eternal life. He used every argument, even atheistic ones. Why not simply do your duty nicely? If you do that, surely you'll get the results. Then he gave arguments based on the laws of karma. Everyone takes birth with his past karma, and everyone leaves this life taking with him his present karma. Everyone takes birth in different situations due to his past activities. Whatever you do, it will be useless. Then he used logic. Indra also sends water to the oceans where there is no need of water. Everyone tried to defeat his arguments, but Krishna always found out some new point of view. As Vaishyas, the agriculture class, we have a special relationship with Govardhana Hill, which feeds our cows and gives us grain to eat. Better to simply worship him and the local Brahmins. Finally, as Krishna was so anxious to worship Govardhana, they agreed to do it. He explained to them that they should cook different delicious preparations and then feed all the Brahmins. Putting garlands of flowers on the cows, they should feed them, and even the inferior animals and human beings. Krishna was also doing this to chastise Indra, who was too puffed as the controller of all heavenly planets. Although Indra knew the exalted position of Krishna as his lord, he couldn't believe that Krishna had taken birth and was living in Vrindavan among the cowherd men and cows. Indra got so angry that he sent all his most dangerous clouds over Vrindavan. It started to rain tons of water all over Vrindavan. Everyone was now in danger, and everyone started to pray to Krishna. Oh dear Krishna, you're all powerful and very kind towards your devotees. So please protect us, as we are being mistreated by the furious Indra. Krishna called all the inhabitants of Vrindavan to Govardhan Hill, and with his left hand lifted the hill while saying, "Now you all can come without fear under the Govardhan Hill umbrella. Do not be afraid, and do not think that he will fall from my hand." All the inhabitants of Vrindavan stayed under the Govardhan Hill for an entire week and did not even think about eating or drinking. They were so amazed to see how Krishna could hold the huge hill on only his little left finger. Nowadays, Govardhan Hill is shrinking as Kalyug, the age of anger and hypocrisy, grows, making him feel sad. On Govardhan Puja, devotees come to worship him, walking the 23 kilometers of the Parikrama path, some even paying their full obeisances at each body extension. Giri Govardhana stands in a peacock pose. Pankari is the back and tail feathers, Dangati is his long neck, Mukharavinda is his mouth, and Radha Kund and Shyam Kund form the eyes of Govardhan. Radha Kund and Shyam Kund are the favorite site of Radha and Krishna's wonderful amorous sports during the day. Once Krishna killed a demon in the form of a bull Arista. Afterwards, when he wanted to touch Radharani, she smilingly told him, even though he was a demon, he had assumed the form of a bull. By killing him, you have become very contaminated with sin. If you take a bath at all holy places, then you will be relieved of the offense of killing him. Krishna very sweetly replied, I shall bathe in the water of all the holy places by calling them all here. Speaking these words, he then stomped on the earth and created a depression which immediately filled up with water of all the holy places. The personification of each holy place also appeared before Krishna, introduced himself and offered prayers. In front of Radha and the gopis, Krishna then took a bath in Shyam Kund, uttering the name of each holy place. Hearing Krishna speaking some boastful words, Radha and her gopis responded by creating their own pond, digging out a deep depression left by the huge footprint of the demon. The kund turned out to be beautiful, and the sight of it made Krishna feel very pleased. When Sri Krishna offered to fill Sri Radha's kund with water from his kund, she flatly refused, insisting that its waters were polluted. Using a chain of gopis, Sri Radha arranged to fill her kund with water from Manasi Ganga, nearly 5 kilometers away at Govardhan Hill. Then the personified sacred rivers appealed to be allowed to fill her pond. At midnight on the 8th day of the waning moon in Kartik, the sacred rivers in Sri Shyam Kund broke through the boundary wall and swiftly filled Radha Kund. People celebrate Radha Kund's appearance, bathing themselves at that hour. Nowadays, these two lakes are surrounded by a village. But 5,000 years ago, when these pastimes happened, they were surrounded by the most magnificent fruit trees, luxurious vegetation, and wonderful birds and animals. The ground was made of the most soft sand, and we could clearly see millions of colorful gems of rubies, emeralds, diamonds, and each gopi had her kund, where Radha and Krishna came to take bath depending on their moods. Chandravali is the rival of Srimati Radharani. Sometimes Krishna goes to her kunj. She has her gopis friends as well, and she is very submissive to Krishna. She says, "Oh Krishna, I belong to you." Radharani would rather say, "Krishna belongs to me." The very name Krishna means that he attracts even Cupid. Indeed, Krishna means the most attractive. As Lord Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, so Krishna is the original name of the Lord. All other names are simply parts and parcels of the original name Krishna. The original name Krishna is more powerful than the other names, and the result of chanting Krishna is greater than chanting any other name. By chanting Rama, one gets liberation, but by chanting Krishna, one attains pure love of God. For this reason, the devotees of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness chant the mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The vibration of Krishna's flute is represented by this Hare Krishna mantra. So when his sound enters the ear of a living entity who is wandering throughout the material world, he is attracted by the sweet sound and becomes highly qualified. Lord Krishna also descended about 500 years ago as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Mayapur, West Bengal. He spent his youth studying the Shastras and became a famous Pandit. He decided to take sannyas, the order of renunciation, at the age of 24 years and began to preach all around India. He attracted thousands of people to Krishna consciousness, sharing with his intimate associates this mission to spread Krishna consciousness by chanting the Mahamantra. He sent several followers to Vrindavan to rediscover the sacred places and deities that were there hidden during the Muslim invasion and then forgotten in the forest. It was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself who rediscovered Sri Radha Kund. Sanatan Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Jiva Goswami, Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Raghunath Bhatta Goswami were the 6 main devotees who took up this important task. We must be grateful to them as now we can all enjoy the glories of Vrindavan Dham. They are considered more than mere theologians or even great saints. They are intimate maidservants and assistants of Srimati Radharani. Anyone who smells a flower from Vrindavan, feels the breeze from Vrindavan, sees a person from Vrindavan, or somehow or the other bows down in the direction of Vrindavan, or once utters the auspicious name, even if he dies in some place far away from Vrindavan, will at once attain the transcendental abode. Imagine the power of this place.
Aho ami devavaramararchitam padambujam te sumanaha phalarhanam namantu padaya sikhabhiratmanas tamopahatyai tarjanna jatkritam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O greatest of Lords, just see how these trees are bowing their heads at your lotus feet, which are worshipable by the immortal demigods. The trees are offering you their fruits and flowers to eradicate the dark ignorance that has caused their birth as trees. In fact, all the creatures of Vrindavan, including the trees and cows, were great souls who could personally associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
The peerless and supreme land of Vrindavan is the blissful abode where the Supreme Personality of Godhead enjoys pastimes. It is the incarnation of the Lord's form and is non-different from him. Under this tree, Krishna and Balram played on each other's shoulders, and in order to remind us this, appeared a black and white tree. Here begins the Parikrama road, the road that surrounds Vrindavan. Vrindavan has about 5,000 temples. Whoever circumambulates Vrindavan will get the blessings of all these temples and will be purified of all his sins. Here was once a beautiful lake of very sweet water. This lake happened to be infested by a most venomous serpent from whom the lake derived its name. Krishna once went with the intention of sporting in its water. This enraged the hideous monster Kalya. He at once came out of the depths of the lake and fell upon Krishna, wrapping him up in his coils and attacking with his 1,000 hoods. Krishna climbed on the hoods of Kalya and began to dance on his 1,000 heads. He danced in an infinite variety of the most marvelous of figures. The kicking of Krishna's feet crushed the towering pride of the myriad-hooded monster. Kalya lowered his hoods and vomited blood. His wives then came out of the lake and with folded hands in prayer begged Krishna to spare the life of their husband. The prayers of the wives of Kalya, who had faith in Krishna, moved the son of Nand to have mercy on Kalya. Krishna now desisted from his terrific dance on the condition that Kalya was to quit the lake at once and to betake himself to his original home in the island of Ramanaka. The water of the Kalya lake was now rendered free from all poison. Once a large boat grounded on a sandbar of Yamuna river. The owner of the boat, a merchant named Krishnadas Kapoor, despaired of losing all the money he had invested to deliver some special goods to Agra. Seeing this, Sanatan Goswami asked him to come to his hut to worship and pray to his Madan Mohan deity. At once the boat floated clear. Soon he came back as a very wealthy person. Seeing that all had happened by Madan Mohan's mercy, he decided to finance the construction of his temple, the first of the Goswami temples in Vrindavan, finished around 1580. Coming from a Brahmin family, Sanatan Goswami, together with his younger brother Rupa Goswami, were working for Nawab Hussain Shah, the head of the Islamic occupational government in Bengal. Some say they were forced to do so as they were very intelligent and learned. Both eager to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, wrote him several times to ask permission to join his mission. Finally, in 1514, Mahaprabhu gave permission, and Rupa and Anupama, the youngest brother, started at once to meet the Lord, while Sanatan remained behind to become more and more absorbed in studying Srimad Bhagavatam. One day he decided to feign illness to stay at home. Pandits began to come from different parts of Bengal to lecture to him. Soon the Nawab got suspicious and sent a physician to Sanatan's house, who reported the situation to him. Sanatan refused to go back to work and was thrown in jail. Bribing the warden to escape, he decided to cross the forests to meet his brother and the Lord. He met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Benares, who gave him most confidential instructions for 2 months. From there, Sanatan went to visit Vrindavan and the 12 forests. He then wished to go to Puri to meet the Lord. In his journey, he had to cross the terrible Jharikand forest. Eating little and drinking stagnant water, he developed a severe and painful case of eczema. In Puri, he stayed with Haridas Thakur, the master of the holy name, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called him. Haridas was a very renowned soul who chanted 300,000 names of Krishna a day. Every day the Lord would come to visit them, embracing both with affectionate love. Sanatan was feeling very bad that the Lord had to touch his running sores. He was so sad that he decided to throw himself beneath the massive wheels of the Rath Yatra cart in the coming festival. Understanding his feelings, Mahaprabhu told him, "Is it not a fact that you have surrendered body and soul to Krishna? If your life belongs to Krishna, then you have no right to end it. The time of your demise is up to him. You cannot misuse another's property." Saying this, the Lord embraced Sanatan, making his disease disappear. Back in Vrindavan, he once met a Brahmin who had a beautiful deity that he recognized to be Madan Mohan, a deity that Sri Chaitanya had wanted him to find. The next day, Sanatan went door to door begging for alms, as every renounced sadhu does. When he knocked at the Brahmin's door, the Brahmin told him that the deity appeared in dream the night before to say that he wanted to go with Sanatan Goswami. So the Brahmin gave the deity of Madan Mohan to him. Kesi was another demon Kamsa sent to kill Krishna. As the horse demon approached, Krishna caught hold of his legs and then cycled the demon a number of times. When the demon was completely baffled as to what was happening, Krishna picked him up, just as a child picks up a flower, and then threw him 100 yards away, which knocked him unconscious. On regaining consciousness, Kesi again charged towards Krishna. This time, Lord Krishna pushed his hand inside the horse's mouth, knocking out all his teeth. The Lord's hand then began to expand in the horse's throat. Kesi demon immediately started choking to death. The 5,000 Vrindavan temples were constructed one after the other by the increasing of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas till our days, although some other sampradayas installed their temples as well. Places in India where the teaching of the 6 Goswamis on Vedic philosophy was kept quite intact in each Brajvasi home. of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Goswami regained the original meaning of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sankirtan movement, giving a new fresh impulse. Radha Gokulnand Temple was founded by Loknath Goswami, who is called the seventh Goswami of Vrindavan. He was specially known for his humility and renunciation. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu once appeared in a dream, telling him to go to Vrindavan to locate all sacred forests of Raj and re-establish the holy places of Lord Krishna's pastimes. At his temple we can find two pair of deities and a shila belonging to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, given to Raghunath Das Goswami, who also came to Vrindavan after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left his body at 1534. He had given up his wealthy family and beautiful wife to serve the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu. He was so renounced that he lived in a hut at Radhakund and only ate a cup of buttermilk a day. At 17th century, the Muslim invasion led by Aurangzeb desecrated Radha Gopinath temple. A new temple was constructed behind the old one. Madhu Pandit kept in charge of the temple and deity after some other Goswamis discovered him at Vamsivat. Originally the deity was installed by Vajranabh, Lord Krishna's grandson, 5,000 years earlier. Rupa Goswami was once at the bank of Yamuna, feeling unable to fulfill the order of Mahaprabhu to revive Vrindavan. Mahaprabhu wanted Vrindavan to become a Vaishnav place of pilgrimage with temples built for the worship of Radha and Krishna. He also wanted the Goswami to write books establishing in a scholarly way a systematic theology. While in that mood, a boy appeared who showed him a hill where he said was buried the Govindadev deity, also installed by Sri Krishna's grandson Vajra. He also told him that every day a large cow would come and shower her milk on the hill in order to give the deity a meal. Observing that it was true, he asked the villagers to help him excavate the hill, finally finding the beautiful Govindaji. Many of the villagers were so impressed that they became followers of Srila Rupa Goswami. Raghunath Bhatta Goswami came from Puri after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left his body. He took shelter of Rupa Goswami's Govindaji deity. He was a prominent preacher of Srimad Bhagavatam and people would come from everywhere to hear him. Eventually Raja Man Singh, father of Jai Singh, who founded Jaipur, became his disciple and constructed a gorgeous temple for the deity. Only in 1590, after Rupa Goswami had left his body, could they finish the construction. Historians and experts in architectural development have described it as the most interesting and elegant edifice that Hindu India ever produced, at least in Upper India, and the only one perhaps in which we find a few hints of European architecture. The 18th century Muslim invasion led by Aurangzeb dismantled the top few stories of the temple, for which reason it appears now a little squat. The deity was moved in time to Jaipur, where he is presently being worshipped in grand style. Rupa Goswami is responsible for the disciplic succession of the ISKCON movement. He left an immense body of literature detailing the process of bhakti. In all, he wrote at least 100,000 verses and his books are still studied. Gopal Bhatta Goswami was born in an important Brahmin family. His older brother Prabodhanand Saraswati was already famous when Gopal Bhatta was 7 years old. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed at their house during his South Indian tour when he visited Sri Rangam. The family used to serve as pujari at the Lakshmi Narayan temple, but Mahaprabhu convinced them to worship Radha and Krishna. In a little while the boy became very attached to Mahaprabhu. He cried so much when Mahaprabhu was leaving that he stayed for a couple of days more just to please him. When he left him, he instructed him to join Rupa and Sanatan Goswami in Vrindavan after his parents' death. In Vrindavan he met them and relished their association. Gopal Bhatta Goswami was also very learned, and together with Sanatan and Rupa Goswami wrote several books, of which Hari Bhakti Vilas is one of the most prominent. He once decided to visit Gangotri, the place where Ganges manifests herself. While taking his bath, some Shilas appeared in his bathing pot. He emptied the pot into the river. On filling it again, he found the Shilas had again come into his pot. Again he emptied his pot into the river, and a third time took water into his pot. When he looked into his pot, he found that 12 Shilas had appeared there. Understanding that this must be the will of the Lord, he accepted them. On returning to Vrindavan, he faithfully worshipped them every day. Some years later, a wealthy merchant offered him nice clothes, jewelry and other ornaments for the worship of the Lord. He refused the offer, saying that he had no deity who could use these ornaments, as he was worshipping Shalagram Shilas. The next day he found that his Damodar Shila had transformed into a beautiful deity of Krishna. He decided to call him Radharaman, as his appearance was near Sevakunj, the place where Krishna gives pleasure to Radharani. The exquisite deity is no more than 12 inches in height, but pilgrims come from all parts of India to pay their obeisances. When at night Krishna plays his flute, the gopis know that he is calling them for singing and dancing in the forest. Sevakunj is the favorite site. Krishna and the gopis joyfully sang many varieties of melodies. Although imperceptible to mere mortals, they sang the celebrated and celestial Gandharva scale and so many other different scales that do not exist in this material world. Mixed with so many kinds of voice fade-outs and many other unique styles of voice and ragas. They sing and dance, making different forms with the shadows of their hands or mudras associated with the theme of the performance. The gopis clap in many kinds of rhythms, and Sri Krishna sings catchy tunes while dancing with them. When Krishna dances with Radha, Lalita and the others sing, Chitra and the others provide the rhythm, and Vrinda Devi and her group judge the performance of the divine couple. Sometimes Krishna dances alone to the amazing singing of Radhika and her friends. And sometimes Krishna watches Radharani dancing with her mind-boggling gestures. In this sacred garden, the divine couple sometimes rest after performing the Ras Leela dance. In the little temple Rangamahal, a bed is kept for them. For eternal sleep, Vedic culture uses to burn the gross bodies. But spiritual advanced souls, the great devotees of the Lord, are buried and remembered, served and worshipped. Their spiritualized bodies are lovingly placed in the sacred earth of Vrindavan near Krishna temples or at places of Radha Krishna pastimes. Stone structures of simple or ornate design called samadhis mark the place where these exalted devotees eternally reside as focal points for faithful devotees to connect with the spiritual mercy, blessings and inspiration. At Radha Damodar Mandir, we can also find Rupa and Jiva Goswami Samadhis among others. Jiva Goswami was the only son of Anupama, the younger brother of Sanatan and Rupa Goswami. His father's death at an early age had a tremendous effect on him, so he decided to renounce the world and its cruelties. He studied the scriptures and began to worship Krishna Balram as non-different from Sri Chaitanya and Nityanand Prabhu. He stayed with Nityanand Prabhu in Navadvip for some time and later finished his Sanskrit studies in Benares. Then he finally went to Vrindavan to join his uncles, taking shelter of Srila Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami himself carved the beautiful deities of Radha Damodar and gave them to Jiva Goswami to worship. His Radha Damodar temple was directly constructed by Emperor Akbar, who was very impressed by Jiva Goswami. Once a renowned scholar came to Vrindavan to defeat Rupa and Sanatan. Both declined the challenge as they didn't want to enter in a mundane competition. In their humbleness, they even signed a document saying they had lost the debate. When Jiva Goswami saw it, he spent 7 days trying to vindicate the reputation of his masters. Running to them to share his conquest, he was severely chastised by Rupa. You have prematurely taken the renounced order of life, and consequently you were not able to conquer your anger and sense of pride. You are hereby banished. You should leave immediately. Jiva went to live far away on the bank of Yamuna. When after almost a year, Sanatan was aware of what was happening, he came to Rupa and told him that he had neglected one of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings, Jiva Doya, which means kindness to the living beings. Realizing the import of Sanatan's pun, Rupa laughed heartily and decided to be kind to Jiva and let him return to their association. Nevertheless, the debate with the scholar was important. If it hadn't happened, the mass of people would still believe that Rupa and Sanatan had been defeated by the scholar and would not accept the Vaishnav teachings. Jiva Goswami dedicated every moment to his mission of codifying Sri Chaitanya's philosophy for the benefit of mankind. Consequently, he is known as the most systematic preacher amongst the six Goswamis and has at times been called the greatest philosopher in all of Indian history. In the courtyard of the temple, there are rooms that have traditionally been rented by holy men. On the eastern side of the temple grounds, there is a room where His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, lived for 6 years before leaving India to sail to USA in 1965. Here he produced the first 3 volumes of his translation and commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam.
Srila Prabhupada wanted to give Delhi, the capital of India, a magnificent temple, and it seems his desire was fulfilled. The Delhi ISKCON temple has been under construction for the last 2 years. It's not yet completed, but it's filled with visitors already. They come not only from different parts of the city, but also from different parts of the world, from all the 350 ISKCON temples, as Delhi is one of the first gateways to India for those who are seekers of the spiritual path. Why is it so important to build temples? One may ask. A temple is a place where we can all gather to worship the Lord and His associates, where we can find peace and enlightenment. A temple is basically the house of the Lord, and that is why we must build it in the most opulent manner possible so that we can perform there the best devotional service in the best devotional mood. These walls stand where the Pandavas lived after winning the battle of Kurukshetra. It is said that countless warriors died during this world war. Before the battle had started, Arjun, one of the Pandavas, had some doubts about the purpose of life. Lord Krishna, who was driving his chariot into battle, spoke to him the Bhagavad Gita, one of the most important scriptures of our Vedic culture. He explained to him that this body was like a dress which we use to survive in this material world. The real purpose of life is to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead and to return to His abode, Golok Vrindavan, the spiritual world, where we can live eternally in knowledge and happiness. Monuments are built to show the world and future generations that we, the governors, know what people want.
Nanda Kumara, Madana Gopala, Nanda Kumara, Madana Gopala, Madana Gopala.
Or that some person was grateful to some other.
Nanda Kumara, Mohana Rupa, Mohana Rupa, Nanda Kumara.
or that this is my property.
Jaya
People
Jaya
know they're going to die. So they want to enjoy.
Jaya Jaya Deva Hari. Jaya Jaya Deva Hari.
And they want to leave behind some remembrance.
Jaya Jaya
They have
Deva
forgotten
Hari.
their original position.
Jaya Prabhu
And they spend so much effort.
Jaya Prabhu Dina Dayala Hari.
And money
Jaya
But
Rama Hari.
time is immemorial.
Rama Hari Jaya. Krishna Hari Jaya.
And everything
Jaya Sachinanda
is so temporary.
Gaura Hari Jaya. Jaya Sachinanda
We fight so much to survive.
Gopala Hari Govinda.
We want to be sophisticated to provide for every luxury. So let's see what people think about this.
Hari Gopala Hari.
आप भगवान में मानते हैं?
Yeah, पूरा मानते हैं।
That's from birth, from childhood.
भगवान श्री कृष्ण में मानते हैं?
हाँ मानते हैं। किसी जी को भी मानते हैं, राम को भी मानते हैं, कृष्ण को भी मानते हैं।
ऐसा कुछ स्पेसिफिक नहीं है, but we believe in a power which is God. और सबकी पूजा है, लेकिन मेन
भगवान कृष्ण।
किशन जी।
आप भी चीज से क्या मतलब है? पहले तो मैं ही मानती हूँ।
पहले आप मानते हैं? आपकी वजह से ये मानते हैं?
हाँ जी बिल्कुल।
तो आपकी भक्ति की वजह से इनको भी भक्त बना दिया आपने।
वो तो भक्त तो बन ही जाता है, भगवान में इतनी शक्ति होनी चाहिए कि भक्त बनाए।
So tell me, how long have you been a devotee?
From 1980, I became interested in the movement. From 1982, I joined full time.
I was joined in Mayapur Gurukul in 1978. Then I shifted. I was study there in Mayapur Gurukul. Then I joined to Delhi Temple. I was serving 10 years there. Then I came to Vrindavan. I'm serving for 2 years in Vrindavan.
So I started a doctorate in social psychology, but then I was totally dissatisfied with the whole Western academic perspective. And then finally I met devotees in 1973 or something. And I read one of Prabhupada's books for about 1 year. And of course I read a lot of philosophy, and I was raised in Christian tradition. And I was pretty serious Christian, praying to God and so on. So that was basically, then I gradually, you keep on experimenting. This is true, then you go a little deeper. Okay, it's still true, you go deeper. So I started visiting the temple in San Francisco in 1974, something initiated. And then I was a brahmachari there for 10 years. I came to India first time 1977.
Well, it was back in 1968, 1970. I was always searching for spiritual life, and I was very attracted to India and yoga. And then Srila Prabhupada, my spiritual master, came, and I met him at first in New Vrindavan in West Virginia.
And what about
the
you?
knowledge was amazing.
Actually, I think Krishna consciousness people come because of many of the reasons. Some are in distress, some are in want of money, some are wise, and some are in search of knowledge. But I came because I was in distress actually. And after joining Krishna consciousness, there is nothing like distress, I feel.
मैं उनकी तरफ आकर्षित